My name is Gina Midico with MnDOT Metro District. I'm the chair of TAC Planning. We have maybe a brief meeting today. We have a few information items, but no official action items. So I will call the meeting to order now that we have a quorum. And the first item is to approve the agenda. If there are no suggested additions, we can approve it as stands. So I'll just wait here, pause for a second to see if anybody has any additions or modifications. Okay, not hearing any or seeing any hands. We will approve the agenda as presented. The next item is approval of the November 13th, 2025 TAC Planning minutes. Hopefully everybody had a chance to check those over. And if you have, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Hey, this is David Burns. I will make the motion to approve last month's meeting minutes.
Thanks, Dave.
This is Drew Flommer. I'll second it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Drew. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll have Jed take the roll.
Jorge Bernal, Anoka County. Mark Culver, Brooklyn Park. Drew Flommer, Carver County.
Aye.
Charlie Howley, Chanhassen.
Aye.
Scott Peters, Dakota County. Dan Patterson, Hennepin County.
Aye.
Bridget Reef, Mac. Patrick Boylan, Community Development. David Burns, MTS.
Aye.
Patrick Haney, Metro Transit.
Aye.
Bria Fast, Minneapolis.
Aye.
Gina Midico, MnDOT.
Aye.
Innocent AO, MPCA.
Lauren Dickerson, aye.
Kevin Roggenbuck, Ramsey County. Anton Jervy, St. Paul.
Aye.
Craig Jensen, Scott County.
Aye.
Sunita Kasishwa, Suburban Transit.
Aye.
Elaine Katsukos, TAB Coordinator.
Aye.
Sarah Allen, Washington County.
Aye.
And Chris Hartzell, Woodbury.
Aye.
Chair, there were 14 ayes, no noes, and no abstentions.
Thanks, Jed. The next item on the agenda is public comment on committee business. So this is an opportunity for any members of the public to speak up about any items we have on our agenda. Jed, did anyone reach out to you, or do we have anyone on the call that's not a member?
Not that I am aware of.
Okay. All right, seeing none, we will move on then to our information items. The first one is the regional solicitation and active transportation solicitation approvals and release for public comment. So this is just an information item for us because the path of action is to go through funding and programming, if I understand correctly. But I think we have, Steve, are you going to present or tag team with you and Joe?
Yeah, myself and Molly Stewart from SRF, the project manager.
Okay, great, thanks. I will turn it over to both of you then.
All right, well, I will kick things off and then turn it over to Steve. So thank you for the opportunity to present today. As Gina mentioned, yes, we are going through getting ready for some action items, starting with F&P next week. So overview, or the purpose of our meeting is to provide some overview on the application changes, talk about the community considerations criteria, and then provide feedback, and then take any feedback from this group on the final applications before they go to TAC F&P for action items next week. So where we're at right now in our process, we've got action items approved for the first listing, and then we're working towards the approval of the criteria, measures, scoring guidance and weighting, and then the release of the entire package then for public comment. Just a couple of updates. We had a technical steering committee at the end of November. We are also meeting with that group tomorrow, actually, to talk through things. Couple of key things that were discussed. There was consensus to have the active transportation solicitation be off cycle from the regional solicitation. So for 2026, they would be in alignment, but then the active transportation solicitation, which would include the 3 applications that align under that. So the local bike, local ped, and then the active transportation planning application would then off cycle and start again with the solicitation in 27 and then be every 2 years after that. So I just want to maybe flag that as something of interest to this group. So that is the recommendation thus far. There was a lot of discussion from both the technical steering committee and the TAC in early December about the community considerations criteria and the percentage that should align with each of the applications. So we have more to discuss with the policymakers coming up here next week. I'll also just note we're going to talk about the year-round maintenance requirements here coming up, and then we'll then I think we'll just flag one more that there was as part of the community considerations, we also have been discussing a funding priority, and right now the recommendation from the technical group was to have 1 project per cycle, and Steve's going to go into a little bit more of that when he talks about the community considerations. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Steve, to walk through that.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so we have had a lot of discussions on community considerations, so wanted to take a little bit of time to explain the 3 measures and the feedback we've been receiving thus far. So again, the whole goal of the effort, regional solicitation evaluation, is to tie our funding decisions back to Imagine 2050 and the TPP. One of those goal areas is equitable and inclusive region. And you can see some of the other regional equity framework pieces here. And so those, next slide then, please. So that policy basis formed what amounts to 3 sub-measures, and you can tie those right back to the policy. First one is community data and context. Strong application, so a clear, nuanced understanding of the community. So this is adjacent to the project site or corridor. Number 2, community need and future engagement. This is the one that probably has changed the most over the past month or so. We had a lot of feedback on what type of engagement you may do, 4 to 5 years before building a project. And so we've retitled this one Community Need and Future Engagement. And so it's really the need that we're talking about, not that you've figured out every design decision, or that it's going to be a signal or a roundabout or something else, but just where did the need for the project come from, whether that's a safety need or a transit need or a bike ped crossing need, and what's the future engagement look like. And then thirdly, what are the community benefits? So what are the benefits to those communities adjacent to the project site? Next slide, please. Here's a table showing some of the feedback we've received on a variety of areas. We talked a little bit about the second row there, concerns about community engagement, wording, and timing, and I think that's largely been resolved. Overall support for the project, or for the approach. A lot of discussion on the 20%. I'd say that the third row down there. The special issue working group, their recommendation was to do a consistent 20% across all of the application categories. There wasn't higher or lower for safety or bike ped or transit or different roadway applications. So a consistent amount. Their recommendation was 20%. I'd say we've had mixed feedback on whether that's the right amount or not lately. At the December Technical Advisory Committee, the county technical staff did recommend that that is lowered to 10% and then proposed places where that would go. And then ran out of space here, but on Monday we did go to the Met Council's Transportation Committee. And the reason we do that is because the application is ultimately adopted by or approved by the Met Council, I should say. And so like on the policy work group, we have 4 Met Council members that are part of that mixture of TAB and Met Council members on the policy work group. So anyway, we brought it to them and walked through a longer presentation on community considerations, and they were supportive of keeping it at 20%. And then lastly, will funding priority benefit too many projects? And we'll talk about that. We did put some limitations and some guardrails on the number of projects that would get the funding priority. And we'll talk about that in the upcoming slides. So next one, please, Molly. So the first topic we want to talk about was the 20% for community considerations across all application categories. Again, we've had mixed feedback on whether that's the right or wrong number. We haven't engaged fully, I'd say, with the full tab, and plan to do that in December, as well as the policy work group here next week to kind of lay out all the feedback we received, including what I mentioned at the Transportation Committee here on Monday. So one of the reasons to keep it at that level, we put some considerations in here, is because that's one of the few Imagine 2050 goals that's not an actual application category. And design so community-driven projects will score higher, goes beyond projects to encourage organizational and systems change. And then we got some other safeguards in there for scoring fairness and consistency. Next slide. So here you can see the goal areas, and this is the application category. So safety is one of the goal areas, dynamic and resilient across the top, another one. Environment, which is largely climate, and natural systems is the other one. But then there is no application category for our region is equitable and inclusive. And so that's trying to find the right way to incorporate that goal area was really the challenge of that special issue working group. Okay, next slide. So the first topic was the 20% scoring across the board. Topic number 2 was the funding priority. And so what we talked about with the technical steering committee was that there would be up to 1 project per solicitation cycle that would score exceptionally well in the 3 submeasures. They'd have to have a high rating in both measure A, B, and C, and that would go back to the community considerations group. And then that project, if it's not likely to be funded in one of the funding scenarios, would be funded. So that would be in lieu of really application category. This would fund 1 project. And that project would not come from the safety, 2 safety application categories, proactive and reactive. So that's something we heard from the technical steering committee. With only $30 million in safety, they really wanted that to be data driven and based on crash statistics. So out of the other categories, up to 1 project would be funded that normally would not be funded under the funding scenarios. And that would act as a community considerations application category. Okay, next slide. You can come back if people have questions on some of that too. Just trying to make sure everybody's up to speed on what's happening. So as far as the applications, we've had, I guess, two full rounds of review here. Many of you were either on the special issue working groups or were part of this last round of technical review. And another slate of actions are going through the funding and programming committee, as Molly mentioned, starting next week, Thursday. And then the item does go up for public comment and then goes back to funding and programming again, starts the whole process again. So we'll see what the public comments are. We'll write up a public comment report, and then the process will start anew again. And we'll say, based on these public comments, are there any other changes, technical changes, funding and programming you'd like to make based on these comments? Next slide, please. Okay, we talked about some of these, so we wanted to highlight a few of the changes that have been made along the way based on your and other technical input. We talked a little bit about that Measure B and community considerations to focus on community needs and future engagement. That was, I think, the biggest maybe change from a text perspective. We heard from at least one county on the bridge connections application category. So we added a brand new measure, detour impacts, and simplified the safety criteria. So it was a little bit different than the rest of the roadway applications. We did have a safety special issue working group here. What was it now? Last Friday or 2 Fridays ago here. And one of the changes they had proposed was some weight adjustments in the proactive safety application. We talked those through, and I thought those some good edits, and that group all agreed to. So that was another change. And finally, the regional bike, the context sensitive design criteria, we did retitle the all ages and abilities design. That better aligns with the 2050 TPP. So just some of many, and we will have the full track changes versions available when we send out the funding and programming packet, so people can take a look at. You know, you don't want to review the whole thing top to bottom, but you probably do want to see what the specific changes, like some of these that are mentioned here, are. Slide. One topic that the tab sent back down to the technical staff, and we haven't fully resolved it yet, and we've had a few presentations on it, but they asked, can you tell us exactly where car sharing and bike sharing projects would be eligible? So we think that both the local bike facilities, for bike sharing that is, and travel demand management are the two places where you'd find eligibility for car sharing and bike sharing. In past cycles, we've funded car sharing projects in both unique projects, which isn't proposed to continue on, and the travel demand management. So both those places we funded car sharing in the past, but now with unique projects not proposing to move forward. It is a fair question to ask. And particular unique projects had $4.5 million or so, with that gone and travel demand management being left, and that's a smaller amount of money, $1.2 million available in this upcoming cycle, and then in the future cycle, $2.2 million. So it's not the $4.5 million. So it's going to be smaller projects if it's local car sharing, as we're calling it. But we do think that there is eligibility both for car sharing and bike sharing within this new structure. And it's just a matter of, do you think that the amount of money maybe put into those areas is adequate, or do we need to set aside some amount of money and then outside of this process next year have a conversation on, do we need to go back to unique projects? Do we need to go back to another application category? That would be the other option to say. One, we could say it's fine as is, there is eligibility. Or two, we would say we need to set aside some money and then think about it in 2026. Okay, next slide. And then the last slide here is next steps. Again, we've talked a little bit about the public comment period coming back. We are looking at a call for projects that would be late spring moving into the summer time period. Just that a lot of people are tracking the next round of solicitation and when those projects, when they need to start thinking about those projects. But we think it's going to be kind of a spring, early summer activity for the call for projects. And then project selection, probably end of 2026 into 2027, depending on how fast things move through our committees. Excuse me. And then lastly, we do have, I don't know if Molly, if you want to touch on anything here, but we do have a series of slides. We're not going to go through them all, but one of the action items is going to be asked about the criteria weighting. And so we've listed in a few different ways. What those are, Molly, anything you want to add?
Yeah, maybe we just, there's a couple of maybe how we got to these criteria and weighting to provide some context here. So, we originated a lot of the percentages in the special issue working groups that met and twice in April and May. We worked through developing and drafting applications over the summer, brought them forward to the working group as a draft. They weighed in, then they went through 2 rounds of technical review, like Steve said. So the criteria and weighting that's being shown and will be part of the F&P packet starting next week has been vetted essentially over the last 9 months in pretty thorough detail. I'll just maybe touch on these. We have a couple of summary slides. I won't go through in detail, but just providing a little context of, each of the categories are aligning with a different goal area, as Steve mentioned. So in the safety category, a majority of the criteria is aligning with that safety goal. As you can see, there's 4 primary criteria with varying percentages of weight based on whether it's a reactive or proactive application. And then right now, every application does have that 20% across the board for the community considerations. For the bike ped applications, there are 4 total applications. The criteria is a little bit more diverse. All of it ties directly back to that legislation requirement, since these ones, the 3 over here, the local ones are connected with the AT funding, and then the regional bike one is the one that's just the federal money. But this one is a combo where there's a safety focused criteria in addition to the other ones that are more geared towards that dynamic and resilient goal area. The transit categories, I think, is very similar in nature to what it was previously for both the expansion and customer experience applications. So the one that is the most similar, I would say, to the 2024 solicitation. And then the roadway application, there's 4 applications, very similar to what it was the last solicitation, just slimmed down some. So we were focusing more on those criteria that align with the dynamic and resilient goal, also bringing in a safety question. And then this is where the natural systems goal area also comes into play. That's another one of the 5 goal areas that Met Council had that does not have its own application category, but is brought forward in criteria as part of the roadway applications. And then finally, the TDM application, again, is another one that's very similar to what it was in 2024, with just slimmed down criteria to focus on the ones that are most aligned with that environment goal area. I think maybe I'll stop there. The rest of the slides are very detailed by category that you can get a little bit more context. As Steve mentioned, we're the final application or the package that's going to be presented to F&P for approval, and then ultimately going out for public comment is coming shortly your way. So, any questions? Maybe we want to turn back over to you, Chair, and see if there's any questions now.
Sure. Any committee members with questions at this point? Charlie, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Steve, I don't know if you answer this or not. Up in the community considerations, the term community is used. Is there a definition for what that is? As speaking for a city representative, does it mean my city? Does it mean the neighborhood in my city? What does community mean? That helps me, figure out what the intent is on this category.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and Charlie. That's a great question. We do have that on other slide decks here, but it's largely, or it is people living, working, or doing other activities adjacent to the project versus people commuting through the project area. So that would be the one definition. There are special community types that we've also identified, and those have been identified since 2014. And Let me just, I'll either call on, ask on Amy here to fill those in, or else I can give it a try here. I just want to make sure I've got it right. I've got that on another PowerPoint, Molly.
Mm-hmm.
For tab, it's largely, it's youth, older adults, handicapped individuals, and then by race and is it
Income.
income? Okay. Yep, I'm gonna double check that I got them all here in my other.
I'm on, Steve, if you want.
Okay. Yep. Did we hit all the special communities? I was just trying to pull.
So backing up a bit, and I don't know if you can find the slide that has the definitions, but
Yeah. Yep.
the community is, in a broad sense, those, as Steve said, impacted by, adjacent to a project. And depending on what the project is, that might move in and out a little bit, using the project to get to a destination in the area. But as Steve said, not commuting through, those are commuters. And then the second definition is actually specific communities, and specific communities refers to people of color, indigenous, low-income disabled, youth, and senior adults. And that's a definition TAB has used for over the past decade in as part of the solicitation. And for the specific communities, what we really want is, as you're particularly with Measure 1 doing the data, to really acknowledge these communities, provide some nuance to who, some comparisons maybe within your city, within the region, and acknowledge maybe their specific needs and prioritize them for the benefits of the project. So the specific communities are smaller units within the community that we just want that enhanced description and focus on.
Got you. Thank you. That makes sense. Second question, you talked about the idea that maybe one high scoring community consideration project would get funded kind of regardless. And my mind goes to, okay, what if there's this project that's $200 million that really doesn't score well on anything other than high? Should there be some sort of like maximum funding appropriation to such a project? Was that ever, thought about or discussed? It kind of seems like you might want to, level set the amount of money you would give to this one project. Just an idea.
You want me to take that?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, the important thing to remember is that these projects will apply in a different application category. There is no community considerations application category. So the project that is guaranteed funding will be in safety. Well, no, that's the one we said it can't be in safety. It would be in roadway modernization. It would be in bike and ped. It would be in transit. And each of those categories have a minimum and maximum for the federal funding. So the project would still be subject to those minimum and maximums for the federal funding. But the reason it would be funded is not because of the technical criteria. It's kind of setting it aside and saying we have one really good community-oriented project, and by guaranteeing it funding, we're essentially setting up a separate category for community considerations. And one of the things to emphasize about that is sometimes projects just don't apply because they might be a really great community project, but they might be small in nature. An applicant might look and say, I can't compete on these technical criteria, but this is a project the community has identified, they really need, they want, we've been engaging with them. It's a very focused project. And under that instance, we would encourage you to still apply with the idea that that might be the project that gets the priority funding.
Thank you.
So the maximum either way would be $10 million because that's the maximum from the other categories that would be eligible for this project type. But it could be less. Could be $1 million. Could be $2 million.
And Steve, just to clarify, it would only one project would get funded on the high system, or all projects that get high. I know we're thinking it's rare, or in previous presentations I've heard that, but I've lost track of what the current proposal is.
I'm going to chime in there too. The current proposal is only one. Now that might still be 0. There might be no projects that get high. If there are more than one, we will rely on the scoring committee to recommend which one should be guaranteed the funding. One of the things we heard at Transportation Committee from one of our members is she was very disappointed we lowered that to 1. It originally had been up to 3 projects. And to some degree, the weighting, the 20% kind of goes hand in hand with the priority projects, to the degree that if that scoring gets lowered by TAB, we might encourage TAB to consider having more priority projects to give it more emphasis in a different way. So the two kind of do go together.
Any other questions at this point from the committee? All right, do you guys want to continue you have more slides, correct?
No, that sums it up.
Okay.
Slides at the end were more of a reference for people.
Gotcha.
But I do want to thank people. A lot of folks here were on the special issue working groups or contributed in other ways. So we do want to thank you for your help. We will have scoring committees coming around next summer here too. So if you're interested in being part of that, we take the help there too. Thanks.
All right, thanks to you both. Innocent has a question. Go ahead, Innocent, if you're there.
Steve, on the presentation, you said that during our meeting with the Transportation Committee, that they prefer or they voted to continue with the 20% community consideration. And since I think tomorrow's meeting was scheduled to discuss mainly on that, are we continue to have that, or the discussion is settled since the Transportation Committee has voted to continue with the 20%?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And that's a great question. We still will talk about it at the technical steering committee. I think we'll try and bring what the feedback we received from the Transportation Committee. It was not a vote, but they certainly had strong support for keeping it at 20% percentage-wise. I know some of the technical staff that submitted the letter from the counties did want some time to walk through their proposal. So I think those would be the two things. And if there's any technical considerations that we'd like to give to the policy work group, which is meeting next Wednesday before TAB, that would be our ask of the technical steering committee. If there's any other kind of technical considerations that they'd like to forward to the policy work group.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, good question.
Okay, any additional questions or comments? And Steve, can you just walk through that then more time, just that timeline? Sorry, I know I think is it slide 16? So the next steps, this will be action will be taken on this at funding and programming next week.
It will.
I know there's a lot of overlap for committee representation, so we just want to make sure everybody understands what the next steps are, and where the special steering committee. So it sounds like I know there's a technical steering committee meeting on this Friday, correct? And then you said the policy work group meets before TAB.
Next Wednesday. Yeah.
Okay, next Wednesday. Okay.
Yeah. So for those of you that are on TAC, that January 7th meeting will be in person at Robert Street, and I think we'll need to. There's a chance it does dip into February here too, because we have 10 action items. We try to split them up already, so we've had some go through the committee about the targets and the application categories, etc. But this next batch of actions is 10, and so it's unclear if we'll get through them all, especially at the tab level, or if we'll need 2 months to do it.
Okay, thanks. It's a lot to get done, a busy schedule, but yes, I'm sure we will be hearing about it through those other processes or through these steps and committees. All right. Thanks, Steve and Molly, for that. The next item on the agenda is regarding the Regional Bicycle Transportation Network. And I think Steve Elmer. Steve, are you here to say a few words? I don't see a presentation, but is this just a verbal update?
Yep, just a verbal update. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so, and this will just take a few minutes probably. We, at our last bike ped technical work group meeting, we were reviewing the scoring criteria for the regional bicycle facilities, and one member raised a concern relating to the proposed scoring that awarded more points to RBTN alignments than RBTN corridors, which is a departure from past scoring processes. And they expressed a concern saying if they had known, that this was going to be a change, they most likely would have submitted more alignments and fewer corridors in the RBTN update process last summer. And then they asked if there would be an opportunity to designate alignments prior to the upcoming solicitation, given that change, which I didn't have an answer at the time. So we went back and talked about this internally and concluded that, well, yeah, that's a good point. So we identified a solution, and since alignment designations within existing RBTN corridors can be implemented as administrative adjustment, and they can be proposed, so they can be proposed at any time and don't require any process other than staff review and approval. We concluded that we will be able to provide a brief opportunity for agencies to request RBTN designations for alignments, designated alignments. So what we plan to do is in early January, we'll send out an informal notice via email to TAB and TAC committees and the distributions. And so through that, we'll be identifying the timeline and everything, and we'll be encouraging agencies to only submit those alignments for which they intend to apply for regional funding in 26. And we want to limit the number of requests we get. Basically, we have limited staff time during this period, and it's a very short window to get everything up and running for the regional solicitation for the official release. So I guess alternatively, you could send us a longer list, but only if you identify your top 2 or 3 priorities for this cycle, because we can do the administrative adjustments at any time, but we would only be able to focus on those top priorities in the time that we have. And we'll be providing about 15 days for a response, so a little bit of a short turnaround. But hopefully, there's probably only a few agencies where this might apply. But so just a few requirements then that we'll have for the alignment designations I'd like to run through. In order to be accepted and designated as an RV10 alignment, the alignment must meet two criteria. One, it must be an existing trail or an existing bikeway, or it needs to be a planned alignment in an adopted bicycle plan, transportation plan, or regional trail or comprehensive plan. And then secondly, the alignment must predominantly occur within an existing RVTN corridor buffer and run roughly parallel to the corridor center line through the corridor. And so those are the two criteria. Agencies will be required to provide a GIS shapefile of the alignment, except in cases where there are just very simple alignments, like maybe those that follow roadways as an example. And in those cases, just provide us a map of the alignment with clear descriptions of the starting, ending, and turning points of the alignment. And then we could figure it out. We could create the shapefile from that. And then once received, then staff will review the alignments to ensure that they meet the criteria that I mentioned. And then they'll convert the RVTN corridor to the RVTN alignment based on your requested alignment. And then they'll incorporate that within the online interactive RVTN map, which will be used for scoring through the regional solicitation process. So that's my update, and yeah, open for any questions.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Does anybody have any questions on that process? So I don't see any, but again, Steve, just to make sure I understand, can you, again, the timeline, can you just go over quickly the timeline? So you will announce this opportunity when, and then how soon will folks have to respond? And then when will staff provide the response, I think, are the main time points that I'm interested in making sure everybody has a clear understanding of.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I have an idea of the first two time points and not as much one on the third, but basically we'll send out a notice very early January, so probably first week. We'll give 15 days, give or take. We'll count weekends or whatever, but we'll add those in. And for a response to be received, and then then we're not sure how, how long it takes to review those. Obviously depends on how many requests we get, but I guess as we review them, if there's a question of acceptance, like this doesn't meet our criteria, we would notify that agency representative who submitted it, have a conversation about it, and see if we can come to mutual understanding on that. But it would be updated. So this would not be done ahead, likely not be done in time for the release for public comment map. I'm unclear. So it's a little foggy when we get to that, but it would be in time for the official map. As these are administrative adjustments, they don't need public review, and we can add them into the official map for scoring. Just, we want to do it before we release the official solicitation. So that's as much as I can tell you, I guess.
Okay, so applicants will know by the time they are ready to apply for the regional solicitation, whether they have been accepted or not. Okay, thanks. And then one last question for me. I haven't paid enough attention to this. You mentioned that there's a scoring differential. The reason this started is because there's a scoring difference between corridors and alignments, and that's the first time. What is, just curious, what does this mean in terms of number of points? What is that differential?
Yeah, the differential is 5 points out of 30 for that criterion, for that measure. At 5 points difference. So tier 1 was one level and tier 2 was another level. And within that alignment, the alignments get the full points for that tier and then minus 5 points for the corridor. And then the reason we did it, I'll just offer this, was wanted to reward those communities who've done more planning and actually have an alignment ready to go. So it made sense from that standpoint.
Okay, thanks for the clarifications. Any additional questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, I will let you go, Steve. Thank you very much for the update and good luck with the process.
Thanks.
The next item, we have Dave Burns, who will give us an update on functional classification review in the Metro.
Great, thanks. Can everybody hear me okay? I'll preface this by saying, of course, timely, I have some internet connectivity issues, so I am just on my laptop and don't have a second screen, but my voice is clear, everything like that?
You sound good on my end.
All right, great. So I'm going to provide kind of an update on our functional classification process. We have a couple of simultaneous things going on that I wanted to provide some clarity on. But first, I'll talk generally about functional classification and what does it matter and what does it mean. So really, the functional classification identifies the role of each roadway within the system on the transportation network. Generally, some roads kind of emphasize longer distance trips and mobility, while others provide access to surrounding land use and development. Of course, the two classic examples are interstates, which are kind of limited access, high speed, and designed for longer trips, versus local roads, the roads which many of our houses might be on, which are kind of lower speed and provide direct access to housing, parks, businesses, etc. And as you can kind of see on that illustration that everyone has probably seen, on the right, there is a relationship between accessibility and access. So most roadways fall somewhere in between these two examples, accessibility and mobility. So there are 4 main roadway classifications and a total of 7 categories that both MnDOT and FHWA officially recognize. The council does recognize 4 additional, which I'll get into. Those are principal arterials, minor arterials, collectors, and local roads. And classification is based on characteristics such as speed limit, traffic volume, the width of the shoulders and lanes of the roadway, parking, and pedestrian and bicycle accommodation. So a number of factors really play into the roadway functional classification. So a roadway's functional classification also importantly impacts its eligibility for funding, in particular for the regional solicitation, but it's also instrumental for local planners for long-term planning. Next slide, please. Oh, okay, you're on the right side, sorry. So traditionally, the council, and this still is the case, the council is a primary contact for local functional class change requests. And we help to determine the roadway functional classification in conjunction with MnDOT Metro and FHWA. But ultimately, MnDOT, in coordination with FHWA, ultimately approves all changes and is really in charge with ensuring the network is up to date. Historically, MnDOT has conducted a comprehensive review of the entire state's functional class system at least every decade. And that is to kind of react to the new urban area boundaries once those are finalized and approved. So in 2020, the new urban area boundaries, well, the 2020 census created new urban area boundaries, which were officially approved by the council in 2023. However, the last Metro District comprehensive update occurred relatively recently in 2021. That was a result of the 2010 census, in which they did most parts of the states around 2016, but did not finalize the Metro District update until many years after that in 2021. But that 2021 process did result in a number of changes that really ensured consistency not only throughout the region, but the state as a whole. And I'm here today in part to let you know that MnDOT is now in the process of conducting a metro-wide review and update for the Metro District, which will begin in 2026. Next slide, please. Thank you. In the meantime, in 2023, we completed the functional classification update study. This resulted in a number of changes to really modernize our, I'm going to call it unique functional classification system that we have here in the Metro. Some of the key takeaways here, it resulted in the removal of what we previously called the other arterial or B minor subdesignation. So all of these were reclassified or kind of bumped up in classification as minor arterials and given the subdesignations we previously used for A minors. And these subdesignations are used to help define their role within the regional system and have been used by the council for a number of years for many reasons. As part of this process, the project team, including myself and our consultants, we met with city and county officials to discuss changes to not only the minor arterial system, but also we identified and updated other roadways that may have been misclassified. All this to say is that this study provided another opportunity for really a system-wide review and update of the network. So 2021, we had the MnDOT-led effort. 2023, we had this functional classification update based on this functional classification update study, two opportunities to really refine and make sure that the system is up to date and reflective of reality. Next slide, please. So due to the timing of this MnDOT-led update in 2021, as you recall, it was 11 years or so after the 2010 census, so a little delayed, and the 2023 functional classification update study, the system has really been sort of examined and updated significantly over the last 5 years. That said, MnDOT is proceeding with the Metro District review and update. However, we will see this more as of a refinement of the system and a minor tweak. Fewer changes are anticipated versus the last time we did this in 2021. Importantly, maps have been released and sent to communities in their system statements that should have occurred in September of 2025. those do reflect the changes made over the past 5 years. We are encouraging, and we know that communities are reviewing these maps and are ensuring accuracy and consistency with their local roadway planning initiatives. Just a note here, as opposed to last time when we, were 11 years overdue for a metro area wide update, no in-person meetings are anticipated as part of this effort. Next slide, please. Great. Quick discussion here of the process and timeline. As I said, functional classification is really instrumental to both local planning initiatives and potentially for funding, regional funding via the regional solicitation. So this update happens to coincide with two important activities. On the one hand, our comprehensive planning process, and on the other hand, the 2026 regional solicitation. As such, we're trying to make this, break this down to two different timelines, and changes should reflect any requested changes, the priority and the intent of the potential change. On the left-hand side, you see changes needed for the 2026 regional solicitation, which is a much more pressing, compressed timeline. We are encouraging any requests that need to be approved prior to the release of the 2026 solicitation to come and for county and city staff to come really right away, contact council staff and to discuss the request. We are looking for these change requests by January 16th of 2026. On February 12th, we'll bring that to the TAC Planning Committee for their review. And on March 4th, TAC will review and approve those changes, assuming that there are no principal arterial changes. Anything above a minor arterial, so any principal arterial, if any happen to occur within this timeline, would actually need tab review and approval. But again, that only applies to principal arterial requests. And there's few instances in which a principal arterial principal arterial request change is likely to happen. So yeah, takeaway there is 2026 regional solicitation. If you need something classified as a minor arterial that might not be a minor arterial, contact us right away, and we will expedite those changes. On the other hand, for that kind of 2026 MnDOT Metro District review, that's going to follow a different timeline. That update will take place in conjunction really with the 2050 Comprehensive Plan Review. We will have an information webinar and virtual meeting somewhere February, March, April in 2026. Council and MnDOT staff, this is a MnDOT-led initiative, although the primary contact will be council staff in this case. We will work with individual communities on any possible changes kind of in that late spring, early summer 2026 timeframe. And hopefully by kind of mid to late 2026, update of the map submittal to MnDOT for their approval, and prior to the end of 2026, summer, fall 2026, MnDOT and FHWA will review and approve those requests. So that is kind of an overview of the process and the timeline. Might be a number of questions on that, and we do have Brian McCoy from MnDOT, who's leading the update initiative for the entire state on this meeting as well. So if you have any questions for either Brian or I, now would be a fantastic time to ask those questions. And Joe, I see you have your hand up, probably have some input on the comprehensive plan review process.
Yes, good point. So I just want a little more detail on the actual informational webinar. So it'll be something we'll have, more information on kind of the considerations on what we'll be thinking about and kind of that more detailed schedule moving into late summer to submittal. It's likely going to be early March. We initially identified it for late February, but with regional cessation kind of probably getting to a fever pitch by that point, so we're going to push it back a little bit. But you'll see, we're working with our community development department to kind of get the word out before this, so will be plenty of time to get out there. And I just want to emphasize too, last time MnDOT came through into this, it was a very thorough kind of proactive review of the entire system. I think this time, because of those two, that study and then the follow-up study from the Met Council pretty recently, I think this will be more a reactive, right? So if you at a community level, if you look at that functional class map that you saw in that system statement, that's your existing classification system as identified in that official, federal highway DOT map. And we are really looking for you to provide any suggestions for changes, and we'll kind of review them through this process. So you likely won't be hearing from us the whole community map and every single road marked like last time. It'll be more, we're looking for you to kind of input on kind of any changes you'd like to see in your system before we kind of resubmit those maps in late summer 26. Yeah, just want to add a little more detail in there. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. That's helpful. That was my question on which way we saw the changes going or coming from, whether they be recommended by MnDOT and council staff or requested by local governments. And it sounds like it is the latter for the most part.
Yeah, I don't have 2 years this time to spend looking at everyone's roadway maps. So.
Yeah, I should mention that Joe actually led this process for MnDOT in 2021, so he is definitely an expert on this.
That's right. I forgot that. Okay. Brian, since you joined us, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, I just really appreciate the MPO here to help with this effort. Otherwise, I'll have to do it, and I'm already doing pretty much the rest of the state. So it's a big lift to not worry about that area of the state. Yeah, it was nice job.
All right, thanks for joining us. Any other question? Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Chair, I just want to note too, there's some communities maybe are in here. I've been getting all those feedback from you on those system state maps. A few communities have reached out already, and we're cataloging those, and we'll come back and reach back out to you on those suggestions that we've already received from your system state maps. I know I've got a couple probably in this meeting who've sent us stuff, so we aren't ignoring you, but we will be cataloging those kind of suggestions, and we'll be working through them in the next year. So just an FYI on that, if you have already sent something and you haven't maybe heard back from us yet, but that's where that is at.
Okay, and then I have one question for Dave. The change request for the regional solicitation. Is that you're just looking for staff or folks to contact you? There's not a form or official submittal process, or that's something you'll work through with them individually?
Thanks, Chair. That is a great question. There is an official form that we ask that communities fill out, but it is most beneficial to just meet with me, contact staff from the council, and we will reach out to MnDOT Metro, hear about the change request, kind of give an initial thumbs up, yeah, that makes sense, or maybe provide some feedback as to why a change might not make sense in some cases, and then sort of after that sort of unofficial meeting and discussion, they can decide whether they want to go ahead and fill out that form for sort of the official request to make a change.
Okay, thanks. Any other committee members with questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Dave and others for joining on that item. And we look forward to hearing about the MnDOT update more in 2026. The last item on the agenda for today, Joe, you're going to take this item. It's the 2050 TPP Amendment 2, which is the aviation system plan update. Sounds like you've had some public comments and are here to give us a summary of those.
Yes, Chair. We have completed the public comment period for our TPP Amendment 2 aviation system plan update. I don't have any materials here. There wasn't a ton of comments, and I think I'll kind of briefly just go over some of the themes of these comments, and then and just let you know that the full comment report will be available at Transportation Committee, I think on the 12th next month. So it'll be available in the next couple weeks here. But so just a reminder on the public comment process for our TPP Amendment 2. So that this is for the aviation system plan update, which is a full update of the aviation system plan in the transportation policy plan. And so this update will be replacing the existing document in full. There was a 45-day public comment period, which was held from September 25th to November 10th. The public hearing was held for this on October 27th at the Transportation Committee meeting. At the public hearing, there was no public comments. Well, there was one public comment, but it was about the Blue Line extension and not about aviation, so we won't mention that here. But there was 4 written public comments submitted, both via the comment portal and email. Two of those comments, 2 of the 4 comments focused on suggestions for air service changes at MSP. We just noted in our responses that the system plan does not necessarily deal with the details of specific commercial air service at MSP Airport, and so that would be something we'll pass on to the MAC and our partners with Delta and maybe Sun Country to think about air service changes in the future. One comment was related to access at MSP for both vehicle pickup and drop off at the terminals and also transit access from the north suburbs. We just noted that transit access is improving in the region and specifically in the north suburbs with that Blue Line extension being planned for late 2020s, early 2030s. And so there is some additional capacity there. And then also at the terminal side that the MAC will be working on in terminal pickup and drop off improvements through their MSP 2040 plan. And finally, there's one comment about sustainable aviation fuel and the advancement in the state and the need to ensure fuel products are harvested in a sustainable manner. And the response to this is really detailing how, again, this is a policy document really driving policy in the region to incorporate new sustainable means to power our aircraft in our region, both with sustainable aviation fuel, but other sources like electric aviation and other considerations like that. And that the details of whether that fuel is procured from is something that's not really in the realm of the TPP. But as I mentioned, those are the 4 comments we got. And as I mentioned, the full comment report will be available in a couple weeks before the Transportation Committee meeting on the 12th. And that is all I got.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Any questions or comments from committee members? Cole.
I don't want to steal the show from committee members, so I can wait just to if there's any other questions, but this is not a question, it's more of an update related to Joe's piece.
Okay, we'll pause for a second, see if any other hands fly up. But I don't see anyone chopping at the bit, so go ahead, Cole.
What I wanted to share with you all, because I'm not sure if we ever walked through this, but since this group spent so much time on the TPP, I thought it'd be interesting to just walk through the website, the interactive website that we created for the plan. And I also wanted to show you where we're putting these amendments and where the aviation system plan will go once it's done, just so you have some sense of where to find some of this content. So the Imagine 2050 website, you can see at the top, it's imagine2050.metcouncil.org. It's structured around policy plans and goals. But if you go to the transportation page, we have the objectives and the policies laid out. So you can click on this. This is all based off the Word documents that you all spent many, many hours reviewing. And so you can see, it breaks it down by action and the tables that we had in the Word documents. At the bottom of that page are all the investment plans. And they are not documents, they're web pages. So you click on them and they have navigable tables of contents, which is a big improvement from reading a PDF. And they also have related transportation plans and links throughout them. And just noting here at the top that we have an amendment listed here. That was the one that was just adopted by the council for transit projects. That also will link to a separate page. And that is, I think this is a staging page, but I think it's actually public at this point. And this is again similarly laid out where it's all a standalone document. You'll notice here at the bottom that we have a aviation system plan under development. So that is just a blank page right now. So this will be entirely filled out by the document that Joe has been working on over the last 6 to 9 months. So that'll be up and running after it's adopted by the council in late January. So, and if we have future amendments, they'd be more likely under this approach than an entirely different aviation system plan. So that one's being handled a little bit differently. So just a heads up. I know we spend a lot of time on this. I don't know if we ever shared this website and walked through it. So a lot of great information. I would also just note you can read the not as good plans, but the other plans like land use and housing. They're all similar structures where they have these links that are all web pages to navigate. So a lot of great information, and I know this is particularly relevant as folks start getting into their comprehensive planning process. This is a great place to find information. So that's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Cole. I hadn't seen that yet, so I appreciate you sharing. Any other questions or comments on the aviation item? Okay, well, thanks, Joe. Appreciate the update. That is our last official item on the agenda. Or is there any other business from committee members? Oh, Innocent. Go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair. I just have a short announcement. I think I've done that in other committees. I've been with the planning committees for over 30 years. And after 39 and a half years with the state of Minnesota, 38 with Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and about 1.5 years with the Department of Transportation. I'm announcing that I'm planning to retire from the state service. My last date is January 12th. And I think they're planning to have some reception about, I think around on January 7th at MPCA building. We'll be sending some information on that to Met Council staff. So it's been an honor and privilege to work with most of you for the past at least over 30 years, especially as a member of planning committee. And very grateful with all the support that you provided to me and MPCA, especially when we had a non-attainment area for CEO. So we went through that for over 20 years, non-attainment to maintenance and to attainment now. And we would have not achieved that without the hard work from Mendor staff, Met Council staff, all of you from the counties and cities in supporting us with that faith, and all the work and struggles meetings that we went through when we were working on conformity issues. So I really have take this opportunity to thank all of you, and I wish you to continue with the great job that you've been doing for the state of Minnesota. So thank you.
Thanks, Innocent. I appreciate you. I've heard that announcement at a couple of meetings now, so appreciate you sharing that with us here. I have seen you at a lot of meetings here, and you've been an important voice on all these committees, and certainly the longevity of your tenure and all of the things you've seen, as you mentioned, quite impactful. So thank you for your public service and the contributions you've made to this committee and others, and congratulate you on a great career, and I wish you all in your retirement. I hope you do share that invitation with Met Council staff so they can get it out to committee members. So if folks want to attend and see you off, that we can do so. So thanks.
Yeah, we'll do that. Thank you.
Well, anyone have an announcement that tops that? I hope not. Okay, with that then, I will conclude the last TAC planning meeting of 2025. And I will wish you all well the holiday season and in the new year, and we will see you in January. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.